Chosen one, do not run back simply because the new season is quiet. The biggest goodbye of your life may not arrive like a goodbye at all. There may be no final argument, no last message, no dramatic door closing. Nobody may announce that an era has ended. You may simply wake up one morning and notice something strange. A name appears on your phone, and your chest stays quiet. A memory crosses your mind, but you do not build an entire afternoon around it. Someone misunderstands you, and you no longer feel desperate to explain every detail. That is where this begins, because the biggest goodbye coming into your life is not necessarily someone leaving you. It is the slow disappearance of the version of you who needed the old world to keep confirming who you were. And this kind of ending rarely makes noise. Think about what had power over you 1 year ago, not what annoyed you, not what disappointed you. Think about what could change your mood before breakfast, what could make you check your phone again, what could make you rehearse a conversation that had already ended. Now ask yourself one question: does it still have the same access? Do not ask whether you remember it. Memory is not access. Do not ask whether it still hurts sometimes. Pain is not ownership. Ask whether it can still make decisions for you. Maybe there was a person whose silence could ruin your whole day. Maybe there was a room where you became smaller without noticing. Maybe one message could make your heart race, while one cold reply could make you doubt everything you knew about yourself. But lately, something has changed. You still notice the signal, but the command is weaker. You still remember the story, but you do not obey it in the same way. You still feel the old pull sometimes, but your feet are not moving backward. That matters more than you think. The old chapter may still exist in memory, but memory is not where you live. A thought returning is not proof that you belong to the life it came from. A feeling appearing is not an order to reopen a door. Chosen one, this is why the quiet can confuse you. You expected freedom to feel electric. You expected a new chapter to arrive with obvious signs. Instead, some old things simply stopped feeling alive, and the space they leave behind can feel almost empty. Do not mistake that emptiness for failure. Sometimes what you call emptiness is the first room in your life that is no longer crowded by old noise. You are not being asked to fill it immediately. You are being asked to notice what no longer owns it. If you recognize this, make one simple declaration inside yourself: it has lost access. Not because the memory vanished, not because the story never mattered, but because what once reached directly into your choices is beginning to lose its key. And that is only the first layer. Because losing access is not the same as completing the goodbye. There is another part of you that can remain near the old door, long after your deeper self has already walked away. So watch what happens next. The biggest goodbye may already have started, and you may have missed the sound because there was none. Chosen one, there is a reason this ending feels almost invisible. The world teaches you to recognize change when something dramatic happens. A relationship breaks, a job ends, a door closes. But some of the most important endings happen when the situation stays the same and your response changes. You may still see the same name. You may still pass the same place. You may still hear the same story from someone who once controlled your emotions. Yet something inside you no longer rises to meet it with the same urgency. This is what I call the silent exit. It is the moment the old world begins losing access to the version of you that is becoming real. Nothing outside has to disappear first. The deeper shift happens when the old signal can no longer summon the old response on command. That does not mean you have become cold. It does not mean you stopped caring. It does not mean your heart is closed. Sometimes the opposite is true, because your heart is finally learning that compassion does not require surrendering control of your inner life. Notice the difference. Before, one look could change your mood. One delay could create 100 explanations. One rejection could make you question your worth. Now the same event may still sting, but it no longer gets to decide who you become for the next 6 hours. That is evidence, behavioral evidence. If you want to know whether the silent exit has begun, do not search for a sign in the sky. Look at your choices. Look at your recovery time. Look at what you no longer abandon when someone else becomes uncomfortable. Ask yourself 3 questions. Does this still control my mood? Does this still change my decisions? Do I still need it to confirm who I am? Your answers will tell you more than any dramatic prediction ever could. And be careful here. Not every form of distance is growth. Sometimes people shut down because they are exhausted. Sometimes numbness can look like peace. That is why the test is not whether you feel nothing. The test is whether you can feel something without handing it the steering wheel. You can be sad and still move forward. You can miss someone and still know the door is closed. You can remember an old life and still refuse to make new decisions from its rules. That is the difference between avoidance and release. You did not lose your heart. The old world lost its key. And when that key stops working, you may feel a strange kind of silence. No argument, no victory speech, no final scene, just less access. This is where many chosen ones get confused. They think healing should feel like a permanent high, but real change can look much simpler. Your reaction gets shorter, your recovery gets faster, your next choice becomes clearer. If that is happening in you, mark it. Do not minimize it because nobody else can see it. Something important is changing inside, the decisions nobody applauds. Say this quietly if it fits. The old key is gone. Let that sentence land without forcing emotion around it. But now we come to the harder question. If the old world is losing access, why does your mind still go back there? Why do you replay the conversation or imagine what you would say if they finally understood? That is the next layer of the goodbye. And it is where many people discover they were not waiting for the person to return. They were waiting for something else entirely. Chosen one. There is a painful kind of waiting that can survive after love has changed. You may no longer want the relationship back. You may no longer want the old job, the old room, or the old version of your life. Yet your mind still imagines one final scene. In that scene, they understand. They finally see what they did. They admit you were not too sensitive. Maybe they apologize. Maybe they watch you become everything they doubted. And for one brief moment, they realize what they lost. Because that scene still appears, you may assume you have not healed enough. You may tell yourself that if you were truly free, you would never think about them again. But that is not always what is happening. Sometimes you are not waiting for them to come back. You are waiting for them to become the last witness. You want the person who misunderstood your pain to become the person who finally confirms that your pain was real. This is why closure can become addictive. Closure promises a perfect final scene where every loose thread is tied. They explain. You respond. They finally understand. Your body relaxes because the story has been completed in the exact way you hoped. But life does not always give you that scene. Some people never understand. Some people understand and never admit it. Some apologies come too late. Some arrive after you have changed so much that the words no longer carry the power you imagined. Picture that for a moment. Imagine the message you waited months to receive finally appearing tonight. They say everything correctly. They admit what happened. What if you read it and discover that it no longer changes who you are? That moment would not be empty. It would be freedom. Closure asks them to understand you. Freedom no longer requires it. This goodbye is deep because you are not only releasing someone, you are releasing the job you secretly assigned them, the job of validating what you survived. That job was never safe in their hands. Yet part of you kept waiting for the source of confusion to become the source of clarity. You can stop waiting now. Not because what happened was acceptable, Not because the story did not matter, but because your healing does not need the final signature of someone who was absent when you needed understanding most. There is grief in this. Let it be real. You may have wanted the apology because you wanted your younger self to hear it, but your future cannot remain a courtroom. You do not need to keep living brilliantly just to win a case. Nobody else is still trying. The life ahead of you deserves motives larger than proving the past wrong. Imagine one ordinary morning in your future. You wake up, you reach for your phone. The first person in your mind is not the one who hurt you. There is space. In that space, another question appears. What actually matters to me today? That is what freedom begins to sound like. Quiet, practical, almost ordinary. And yet there is still one mystery. If you do not need their return, why can the mind keep replaying the old scene anyway? Why can a person feel finished in the heart and still keep checking the same mental door? The answer matters, because that pattern can make you believe you are still trapped when you are not. The next layer goes beneath closure, into the part of the mind that keeps searching for old signals after the deeper decision has already changed. Chosen one. This is where the quiet becomes confusing. You can be finished with a chapter and still find your mind walking back through it. You can know the door is closed and still check whether it moved. That does not automatically mean you chose wrong. The mind learns through repetition. It notices what has mattered before, especially what carried fear, hope, rejection, or unfinished expectation. So, even after your deeper decision changes, attention can keep scanning for the old signal because the pattern has not fully caught up. Think about how this shows up. You open your phone without knowing why. You replay a sentence that no longer deserves another hour. You delay one important task, then spend energy wondering why you delayed it. You feel clear for a moment, then drift back toward the same familiar thought. The common explanation is harsh. You tell yourself you are lazy. You say you lack discipline. You wonder whether you have failed your own healing. But that explanation can be too simple, because a repeated pattern of attention is not the same thing as a conscious decision to return. Notice your body for a moment. Feel your jaw. Notice whether it is tight. Feel your shoulders. Notice whether they are lifted. Let one slow breath move through your chest and ask what your body has been preparing for, even when nothing is happening. You do not need to make the answer mystical. You are simply noticing where old expectation still lives as tension. Sometimes the body keeps preparing for a conversation the heart no longer wants. Sometimes attention keeps checking a door your identity has already left. This matters because the next season needs space. Not fantasy, not constant intensity. Space. A clear mind can recognize what noise keeps hiding, while a crowded mind can mistake repetition for importance simply because the signal is familiar. If this feels true, say one sentence quietly. I am ready to receive. Not receive another prediction. Not receive another reason to wait. Receive what is already in front of you, with enough clarity to know what deserves your next step. There is also another angle worth holding here. Over the last several decades, researchers have studied how different parts of the brain cooperate during attention, learning, creativity, and decision-making. Some of that work began with discoveries that changed how people understood the two hemispheres. I am going to come back to that later, because it connects to something practical. For now, I do not want you to treat neuroscience like a spiritual slogan. I want you to hold one careful question instead. What if part of what you have been calling spiritual distance is also a clarity problem worth looking at from another direction? What if the old signal feels powerful partly because your attention has practiced finding it for so long? You do not need to answer that yet. Just notice the pattern. Notice what your mind checks when it becomes uncertain. Notice what appears when you are about to begin something important. Notice which old story arrives exactly when movement becomes possible. The point is not to fight every thought. Fighting can become another form of attention. The point is to learn the difference between a thought appearing and a thought receiving authority. That difference will matter in the next part, because once you see what the mind keeps scanning for, you can finally understand why insight alone does not always become movement. Chosen one. There is a name for the gap we have been describing. I call it receiver lag. It is what happens when your deeper choice has changed, but your patterns of attention are still scanning for the world that choice already left. You see it when you know the relationship is over, but still check for a message. You see it when you know the work matters, but suddenly feel tired when it is time to begin. You see it when your future becomes clearer, but your mind keeps asking an old fear for permission. This does not mean every delay comes from one cause. It does not mean every moment of fog has a spiritual meaning. It means something simpler. Patterns can outlive the decision that created the new direction, especially when those patterns were repeated for months or years. That is why self-blame is such a weak tool here. If you call every hesitation laziness, you learn nothing. If you call every returning thought failure, you give the thought more importance than it deserves. A pattern becomes easier to change when you can see what it is doing. Try a simple receiver audit. Ask 3 questions. What has already ended? What does my mind keep scanning for? What deserves that attention now? Do not search for perfect answers. One honest sentence under each question is enough. Maybe what ended was the need to be chosen by one person. Maybe your mind still scans for their approval. Maybe what deserves your attention now is the work, relationship, health choice, or calling that keeps getting pushed behind the old signal. This is where the goodbye becomes practical. You stop measuring freedom by whether the memory disappears. You start measuring it by where your attention goes next. That shift gives you something you can actually observe. Picture one ordinary morning. You wake up and there is no dramatic sign. You reach for your phone, but you do not begin the day by checking the old story. There is a small amount of mental space where that reflex used to be. Inside that space, a different question appears. What matters today? That question may sound simple, but it changes the direction of a life when it becomes stronger than the question, what are they doing now? This is also why I mentioned the research angle earlier. A solution only becomes useful after you understand the shape of the problem it is meant to support. The issue is not merely that you need more information. You may already have more insight than you can use. And if you have tried meditation, journaling, affirmations, or other clarity practices before, you do not need to pretend they worked perfectly. Your experience matters. The question is not whether you have tried hard enough. The more useful question is this: why can insight be completely true and still fail to become movement? Why can you know the door is closed and still find your mind standing beside it? The missing piece may not be another realization. It may be the condition from which you are trying to act on the realization. That is where we go next. Not toward another prophecy, toward the difference between knowing and moving, and toward one practical tool that some people may choose to examine for themselves. Chosen one. Before we talk about any tool, make the problem plain. You can understand why a chapter ended and still repeat habits shaped by that chapter. Insight changes what you understand. Practice changes what you repeatedly do. The condition of your attention can influence how easily you turn understanding into action when old patterns have been rehearsed for a long time. So there are 2 tasks. Release the old authority. Support the clarity needed for the next decision. Neither replaces the other, and no method should become a promise that one tool will solve every problem for every person. No audio track, spiritual practice, or message can guarantee a new destiny, a financial result, or a specific emotional outcome. A tool can support a process. You still decide what you do with your attention, your boundaries, and your next step. The old version kept searching for another sign. The emerging version needs enough clarity to act on the signs already present. Earlier, I asked you to hold a question about the brain. Research associated with Dr. Roger Sperry and the Nobel Prize in 1981 changed how many people thought about specialization across the two cerebral hemispheres and brain integration. That research does not prove that any commercial audio product can transform your life, but it helped create lasting interest in how different brain systems cooperate during attention and learning. A woman from California described using a short audio resource developed around neural synchronization. She reported that her days began to feel clearer and less emotionally crowded. That was her experience, not a guarantee for everyone. A man from Texas had been carrying work and family responsibilities while feeling mentally scattered. After using the same resource, he reported better clarity in daily decisions. Again, that was his reported experience. The resource is called the Genius Switch. It is presented by Dr. Daniel Barone and his team as an 8-minute targeted auditory sequence intended to support neural synchronization and what they describe as whole brain activation. The routine is clear. Use headphones. Close your eyes if that is comfortable. Listen for 8 minutes. The team presents it as a practice without requiring a long meditation. They say the sequence was designed around a neural synchronization approach rather than simply creating a pleasant mood. That is their product description, and it should be evaluated as a product claim. The Genius Switch is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one who understands that clarity is not destiny, but clarity can affect how you respond to what is already in front of you. According to the team, the regular listed price is $49, while the current offer page presents an additional discount to $39. They also describe lifetime digital access and 4 included bonuses. Those bonuses include a guided visualization, a grocery shopping guide, a classic manifestation book, and a printable habits infographic. The team also states that purchases are covered by a money-back guarantee under the terms shown on their page. Do not let the price decide for you. Do not let urgency decide for you either. Ask whether this tool fits the problem you now understand and whether you want to examine it for yourself. Another week spent feeding old signals is another week of attention not directed toward the life in front of you. That remains true whether you use this resource or not. If you decide to examine the product, use the official source linked in the description and pinned comment. Verify what you are reading before making any purchase decision. If your spirit resonates with what has been described, the link below leads to the page where Dr. Barone and his team explain the product. Read the details and make your own decision, and then return to the deeper point. A tool does not release the old identity for you. It does not set the boundary. It does not choose the next step. What it may do is support the condition from which you make that choice. The transformation is yours to live. Chosen one, the tool we just described, is not the transformation itself. It does not choose for you. It does not set a boundary for you. It does not close an old door. It cannot decide what deserves your attention when the next test appears. A tool can support clarity. It can support the condition from which you make a decision, but obedience still belongs to you. Courage still belongs to you. The next honest step still belongs to the person who has to live it. That distinction matters because the old version of you often waited for certainty before movement. You wanted every sign to agree. You wanted every feeling to settle. You wanted every possible outcome to become visible before you risked taking one step. But life rarely works that way. Clarity is not the same as total certainty. Sometimes clarity is simply knowing which direction deserves your next action, even while some questions remain unanswered. Picture one ordinary day in your future. There is no dramatic music around it, no miracle announcement, no person from the past arrives to explain everything. You simply wake up and notice that your mind is not already occupied by an old story. A decision appears before you. Maybe it concerns work, health, or a relationship. Maybe it is something you delayed because you kept waiting to feel ready. This time, the choice looks clearer. You do not ask 5 people first. You do not search for one more sign. You do not reopen an old conversation to see whether someone from your past would approve. You pause, you listen, and you choose. That is movement. The old you needed certainty before movement. The new you build certainty through movement. Notice what changes. You stop treating every unanswered question like a stop sign. You stop assuming hesitation means no. You stop confusing fear with guidance simply because fear speaks quickly. This is what the future can look like when the old signal no longer comes first. Not perfection, not constant confidence, just less interference between what you know and what you do next. If the resource mentioned earlier stayed on your mind, the path is still available in the description and pinned comment. You can examine it for yourself without forcing a decision from emotion. Then return to the deeper current of this message, because no resource can complete the final goodbye for you. That part is more personal than any tool. You have already seen the silent exit. You have seen the last witness. You have seen receiver lag. But there is one goodbye beneath all 3. It is the goodbye that determines whether you keep asking the past to authorize your future. This becomes more personal, because the final thing you are releasing is not a person. It is not a place. It is not even a memory. It is a permission system. For years, uncertainty may have protected you from embarrassment. Waiting may have protected you from rejection. Asking for more signs may have protected you from making a choice that could expose you to disappointment. That protection had a purpose once. Do not hate the version of you who used it. But protection can become a prison when the danger changes and the rule stays the same. The next goodbye begins when you realize that the old rule no longer deserves the final vote. You are close to that moment. Chosen one, this is the final goodbye. Not goodbye to the person, not goodbye to the room, not goodbye to the memory. Those things may already be losing power. The deeper goodbye is to the version of you that keeps asking for permission to move. You know this voice. It says, "Tell me one more sign. Tell me when. Tell me whether this is really my season. Tell me whether I am allowed to trust what I already know." That voice is not always weak faith. Sometimes it is an old protection strategy. Certainty once helped you feel safe. Waiting helped you avoid embarrassment. Asking for more confirmation helped you delay the possibility of being wrong. But a protection strategy can become a permission system, and a permission system becomes dangerous when uncertainty is allowed to veto every honest step. This is the hidden mechanism beneath so much delay. You are not always waiting for clarity. Sometimes you are waiting for a level of certainty that life was never designed to give. So the work is not to destroy uncertainty. The work is to stop giving uncertainty the final vote. This is where every concept in this message comes together. The silent exit showed you that the old world can lose access before anything dramatic changes. The last witness showed you that freedom does not require someone else to validate your story. Receiver lag showed you why old patterns can continue after the deeper choice has changed, and now the final layer becomes visible. The past may still speak, but it no longer gets to vote. That is the shift. The old life loses access. The old witness loses authority. The old receiver stops choosing the same signal, and the old permission system no longer decides whether your future is allowed to begin. Take one slow breath here. Think of one door that has already closed. Do not force it open in your mind. Do not lock it harder. Simply see it as it is. Now imagine yourself standing near that door. You do not need to curse it. You do not need to prove anything to whoever stood behind it. You place one hand over your chest and you turn your body away. Notice your feet. Notice the direction they are facing. Let your next breath remind you that freedom is not the disappearance of the door. Freedom is the moment you stop organizing your life around whether it opens again. Now, say this inside yourself. I release the old permission. You do not need yesterday to certify tomorrow. You do not need every fear to become quiet before you act. You do not need another person to understand your path before you begin walking it. This does not mean becoming reckless. It means becoming responsible for the next step that is actually yours. There may still be uncertainty. There may still be grief. There may still be days when the old signal returns. But the return of a signal is not the return of authority. That is why the final goodbye is so quiet. Nothing outside has to collapse. The old system simply stops receiving your obedience. Chosen one. This is the point where the past becomes history instead of instruction. The final goodbye is not to your past. It is to the version of you who keeps asking the past for permission to have a future. And when that version finally releases its grip, there is nothing left to prove. There is only one thing left to do. Move. Chosen one, before this closes, honor the version of you that carried you here. Do not hate the self that waited. Do not shame the self that checked the door. That version was trying to protect you with the tools it had, but its assignment is over now. Who's traveled John? You can release the old explanation. You can release the old witness. You can release the old access. You can release the belief that the past must approve what the future is asking you to become. Take one more slow breath. Feel your feet where they are. Let your body understand this. You are allowed to face forward without turning every step into a trial. You do not need to erase the story. You do not need to pretend it did not hurt. You only need to stop giving yesterday authority it no longer deserves. This is the quiet goodbye. It is not revenge. It is not denial. It is not a performance of strength. It is the moment your life stops revolving around what happened and begins organizing itself around what matters now. Say this with me if it is true for you. I do not need yesterday to agree with tomorrow. I do not need old doors to reopen. I do not need another witness to confirm what I survived. I trust the clarity I am learning to live from. I can remember without returning. I can feel without surrendering. I can grieve without rebuilding the room I already left. I can move while some questions remain unanswered. I release the need to prove myself to people who knew an older version of me. I release the need to be understood by everyone. I release the habit of asking fear to make decisions in the name of safety. I choose what is mine. I protect what is mine. I give my attention to what can still grow. And when the old signal returns, I will not confuse familiarity with truth. When the old memory speaks, I will listen without giving it the final vote. When uncertainty appears, I will not automatically call it a warning. I move without permission, not without wisdom, not without care, not without discernment. I move without demanding that the past sign a document allowing my future to begin. Chosen one, this is why the biggest goodbye was quiet. The person leaving was never standing across from you. They were living inside an old version of you. They were the one who checked the door, the one who waited for the apology, the one who needed certainty before movement, the one who believed peace had to arrive with proof. You do not need to destroy that person. Thank them. Bless what they carried. Then let them rest. The old names may still appear. The old memories may still visit. But they do not have the same key. Your future does not need a dramatic entrance. It needs one honest step from a different place. So when the silence comes, do not run back toward noise. When the room feels empty, do not fill it with the same old signal. Let the quiet become evidence that something has finally stopped controlling you. You are not waiting for the goodbye anymore. It has begun, and quietly you begin again. It is done.